Investigative reporter Greg Palast has recently busted the GOP scheme to challenge the ballots of 364,000 voters based on the state's new law. He went there himself and confronted one top politico with photos of voters that she falsely accused of voting illegally, which, by the way, is a violation of the Anti-Klan Act, which I'm sure you're keeping top of mind, that one from 1871. And there's other federal laws that it violates as well. These are criminal offenses, and we have the video of Greg's work. Let's roll it.
We're about to meet with a GOP official who says that she has personal knowledge that 32,000 people are voting illegally in this county.
So my name is Pamela Reardon. I am currently 6th District Committee woman to the state party. I know for sure voters do not live here.
This year, Georgia's GOP-controlled legislature passed a new law saying you can challenge an unlimited number of voters. Do you know this woman? Do you recognize that woman?
Not offhand. I don't.
Okay, you never spoke to her?
No.
What about this guy and his wife on his honeymoon? Do you recognize that man?
No.
So you didn't call him, but you challenged his right to vote or have his ballot challenged.
Sir, get out of my house.
Okay, I will get out of your house.
The challenge statute didn't ever contemplate someone coming to town and challenging hundreds of thousands of voters at one time. This, in our view, was an abuse of that statute. That doesn't mean that you get to print out reams and reams of Excel spreadsheets and just, levy a charge against thousands of people that you don't even know and get them, removed off the rolls.
Imagine using the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871.
It gets real when you get arrested. It gets real.
Have you heard of the Ku Klux Klan law of 1871?
I'm from Canada.
So you don't know the Ku Klux Klan law?
I'm from Canada.
Clearly you don't know Georgia law. He's a legal voter.
I got my right to vote in '94.
Okay,
so I don't like people voting illegally. Get out of my house now.
I shall get out of your house
before
now.
I throw you.
And you are sure that this is your legal voting address?
You are an asshole.
Georgia, divided down the middle, and this civil war ain't over. This is Greg Palast in Georgia reporting.
Greg, I love that report so much. She didn't get your humor, it seems.
No, in fact, we had to edit out. Here this woman's dressed like Nancy Reagan in the red dress and the high heels and this swish house, this like plantation mansion that she lives in. And suddenly she starts swearing like a sailor. You'd lose your license.
That is so crazy. How did you get in there in the first place?
She's not the brightest bulb in the socket. So, we did, so we don't violate rules. We did say we were doing this interview, and it was set up by our great investigative photojournalist, Zach D. Roberts. He's the guy that got those horrific photos of the school teacher being beaten in Charlottesville, but he does great investigative work. His main assignment is to work with the right wing. Usually it's far more dangerous people. We thought one thing you didn't really get a lot of there is that this woman right next to the door, the reason I wasn't hesitating about getting out is that she had a shotgun next to the door right there. And she also had these between us on the table. She had all these handguns and she had stacks of ammo. So this is, but
you're like,
hey, listen, you want me to leave? Nope. And what we also didn't show, because I thought it was too over the top, her husband ran out and grabbed me. I said, whoa, that's assault. We're leaving. That's fine.
Wow.
And
Greg, isn't it weird? Because the right wing would think, we watch that. People who are watching this show watch that and we think, oh, wow, she is nuts. Look we're proving that she's just, unfit for the office or whatever you want to say. She looks like a crazy person, but the right wing is like, good for her. She kicked that guy out,
Yes. Well, that's a problem. In fact, I was at a Trump rally in Macon, Georgia in 18.
You are very brave.
Well, I wasn't wearing the fedora. I was wearing like camo outfits and all that. Nothing that said MAGA. I didn't want to overdo it. And I went into the crowd rather than in the news stands where you're kind of in a cage and people throw crap at you.
Right.
the Trump rally. So I'm going and just trying to find out what people are thinking. And just at the end of it, thank God people were leaving. Some woman pointed at me and said, "There's that nasty man." So that, in Georgia, I'm infamous among the right wing. And but we have our guys in there getting this info. So what happened is, you have to understand how serious this is.
Yeah.
300. She personally challenged 30,000 voters who obviously she never met. It's like she never talked to them. She never heard of them. I even had, one of those voters, the guy who was on his honeymoon, the photo we had, he just got married. And I got him on the phone. I said, "You want to tell this gentleman why you were challenging his vote?" And, she was like, And then she says, "I'm not really challenging his vote."
Because I can't win without getting
Right. Yeah, why? Because Republicans can't win if everyone votes. And it's not a partisan. I'm not here to shill for the Democrats. But the truth is that the GOP, if they don't stop voters from voting, they lose. And so what's happening is that we've ended up she was challenging 30,000, altogether 364,000. She had 87 Confederates working with her, and they were backed by a group out of Texas called True the Vote. And they're taking this on the road, these challenges. Yeah. And then behind
like language use that's proper.
Yeah, well, the other thing.
That's not okay. Sorry.
I know. Well, exactly. That's interesting. True the Vote. And they are backed by right-wing billionaires, the Bradley family of Wisconsin. So you have to understand that I've been in, the Greg Palast investigative team has been on the ground in Georgia now. This is our 9th year, and which is like crazy because we always knew it was a swing state. Even the Democratic Party wrote off Georgia. But Martin Luther King III told me, "Greg, if they let us vote, this is a blue state." And so I was fascinated by that. Not that I wanted to elect the Democrats. I wanted people to vote and report on it. So I did that. Those reports. I was the first person to put Stacey Abrams on national TV. But it was Al Jazeera, The Guardian, Rolling Stone. Those are that's who I've been working with.
Well, your work is really largely responsible for us having 2 Democratic senators in that state.
Well, that's true. That was, I would call it, a collateral damage or blessing, depending on your view.
Yeah.
My job was to expose the steal and stop the steal, which we did. And that did lead. The voters chose Ossoff and Warnock, the 2 Democratic candidates. That shocked the Democratic Party. Biden won the state by 12,000. And yes, it wouldn't have been possible without our work and exposure, plus the groups we worked with. You have to understand, we worked with Black Voters Matter Fund. We worked with Reverend Jesse Jackson. We worked with many other people that probably names that you wouldn't know, but on the ground folks. We won a federal suit against Brian Kemp, the governor.
Right.
And to open up his creepy files on how he was playing games with a guy named Chris Kobach of Kansas. If you don't know that name, just think KKK. Chris Kobach of Kansas. Who is like Trump's vote thief in chief. And the 2 of them were conspiring to remove Black people from the voter rolls. And we caught them. We constantly are on, we were down there exposing. This is just the latest gimmick, but I'm worried it's not only going to take Georgia. Remember, Reverend Warnock is running for re-election for Senate because he had he was filling a temporary seat. He'll be running again. And Brian Kemp, the Republican governor who stole the election. Now, I don't say that, willy-nilly, stole the election from Stacey Abrams in 2018. Stacey Abrams actually cited my work there, showing that people were illegally removed from the voter rolls. And what went around the media is, again, our great photographer, Zach Roberts, and working with me, we're at the polls when there's a 92-year-old woman who was tossed out of the polls.
Right.
Her granddaughter is in tears. That was Martin Luther King's cousin trying to vote the 50th year of her voting.
Right.
She was thrown out. They said she didn't live in Georgia anymore. We went to her house where she supposedly didn't live with King's pictures on the wall. So that went national. But what didn't go national is understanding that she was one of 1/3 people removed from the voter rolls wrongly by Brian Kemp. And that's what elected him governor. So understand the tricks that they pull in Georgia. One of the reasons I'm there is that when they start in Georgia and then they take it on the road to Florida, to Texas, to Wisconsin, this is the problem.
Greg,
yeah.
Greg, let's talk about the new laws that these cheaters are using.
Yes. Well, we have something called SB 202 in Georgia. And that's just one case where, they did every crazy things. Like I was a reporter who broke the story that they had made giving someone a slice of pizza in line. So you have to understand, they closed, part of the law was to close most of the voting stations in the state. You had black people, the way that they set the polling stations, would drive 20 miles to vote. And then you'd wait in a 5-hour line because they reduced the number of polling stations. So Papa John's Pizza, that criminal gang, yeah. They came out with their little vests and they were handing out calzones, pocket pizzas, and bottles of water, which I noted for them was a felony crime in Georgia. You can't give food or water to people standing in line. Even remember, Georgia's sun, humidity. They'll stand out there 5 hours. I told you about, Martin Luther King's 92-year-old cousin. So that's the type of games, plus this business of the private challenge, like this woman that we saw from the GOP, and stuff like you have drop boxes for your mail-in ballots. Simple. Well, they now say the drop boxes can't be used outside business hours of these state buildings. Well, that's the whole point of a drop box. You're working maybe even at the post office and you're off at 6 and the state building closes at 5. Where do you drop off your ballot? Well, the answer is they don't want you to drop off your ballot.
Right.
And we saw this in Texas this week where they passed laws saying you can't have, Texas actually had a simple thing. But, a lot of McDonald's are open 24 hours. So are some of the polling stations. No, you can't have 24-hour polling stations. You can't have drive-up windows, even though America lives on drive-up. Yeah, really. So it's just these dumb tricks. But then the biggest single one is what you saw with this woman, purging voter rolls, stopping people from voting. But again, like I did a report for Black Voters Matter in Wisconsin, the same game is going on there. Remember, Biden won Wisconsin by just 10,000 votes because of a massive purge of students and Black people in Milwaukee. So,
Greg, you mentioned Wisconsin a moment ago as one of the places where the money for this kind of these shenanigans is coming from.
Yes.
Who is this? Talk about the source of this scheme and who, what they're planning.
Well, again, see, for years, almost 30 years ago, I did the first film on the Koch brothers, the richest guys you've never heard of. And so now everyone's figured out, oh yeah, the Koch brothers are the billionaires behind the right wing stuff. But now I want to give you some new names. People like the Bradley family out of Wisconsin. Paul Singer, otherwise known as the Vulture, and these are the billionaires, the new billionaire money behind the GOP vote shenanigans. I mean, they it was Paul Singer's money that pushed the defenestration, the destruction of the Voting Rights Act back in 2013. And now we have the John Lewis Act to restore that. And of course, that's the money to stop it. They just don't want people. They don't trust the American people. They don't like democracy. It's not a question of whether they don't like the candidates. They don't like democracy. They keep talking about voter fraud. And there's been a couple cases. Understand, in the past decade, there's been about 2 billion votes cast. And they found, a half dozen fraudulent voters. There are some out of 2 billion. Most people won't go to jail for 5 years to cast a vote for school board. And you're more likely, I actually calculated this, you're 5 times more likely to get struck and killed by lightning than to cast a fraudulent vote. So fraudulent votes are fraudulent.
Greg, what is the likelihood that people like the woman that you went to her house and some of these other electeds will be held accountable? Is the ACLU involved? Is there anyone trying to actually hold these people accountable? Or is it basically just once reporters like yourself, I think you might be one of the only ones, finally get the story out there, that public opinion takes its action?
Well, yeah, I worked with you. In fact, you saw an ACLU lawyer on camera who was shocked. Again, it's usually that I uncover these things and then the ACLU, NAACP picked this up. I did a report for the ACLU last year on illegal purges of the voter rolls in Georgia. And the other lawyer that you heard from was the lawyer for the NAACP of Atlanta. And he was shocked, but he said, hey, Greg, this violates the Ku Klux Klan Act. You know, it's a 100-year-old act, but you go to jail for this stuff. There's a reason why we had these things. We fought a civil war. 600,000 Americans died in it, so that, and it ended up with the 15th Amendment, where it says, you know what, you got the right to vote no matter the color of your skin. And these guys just simply can't handle it.
That's funny, because in the segment right before you came on, we were covering school board meetings and the craziness that has happened there. And basically one of the guys is like, we're bringing on a civil war. We want the civil war, you know, so that their kids don't have to wear masks. I guess.
Their kid, yeah. Oh, yeah. The mask holes. Yeah, I'm familiar with them.
It's totally crazy out there. So is there anything you would suggest that our viewers do in order to, you know, help the process of allowing people to vote?
Well, two things. One, go to gregpalast.com and pick up some of those stories and reports and what you just saw and get it out to your representatives. Let them see what's going on. And I have found that, you know, it's like disinfectant. When you turn on the lights, the cockroaches run to the wall. And our reports have been very effective. When I did my report for Rolling Stone, we got some members of Congress to walk it over to the Attorney General's office, and that stopped some, and we shut down another 29 state horrendous racial program of vote scrubbing called Interstate Crosscheck. We shut it down. But that required that people pick up the stories and material we get, and like what you're doing, which is fantastic. It's just getting it out. You know what? Because, you know, believe it or not, most Americans actually think stopping people from voting is not American. That's why they actually have to lie to their own people. Like Trump has to say, oh, voter fraud, voter fraud. And of course, they buy it, whether it's true or not. So now, you know, so we're going to try the truth. How about that?
That would be great. And we do appreciate your shoe leather that you take right to the streets. I mean, so many people just don't have the gumption to go to somebody's house and really just, you know.
and I got to tell you, I had one network saying, well, that's too Greg Palast for us. And
well, that's
yes,
funny.
it is.
When I heard it, I said, oh, there's nothing that's too Greg Palast for our show. So I do appreciate you coming on here.
Well, you know, we don't have that kind of investigative reporting anymore. The Edward R. Murrows, et cetera, you know, like the Bill Moyers, they're all, you know, they're gone. Seymour Hersh, you know, was kind of was pushed out of the New York Times. And, you know, I spoke to him about it, you know, so, you know, I'm the kind of a fossil, one of the last of the investigative reports. It actually goes on the ground, and it takes, by the way, it's really expensive. That's why they do that. I have a fund, the Palast Investigative Fund,
which you can give money to.
Yeah, I won't turn it down, but it's not for profit, nonpartisan. And the point is, we take to get that set up and to get the information, find the voters who were shafted out of their vote and get their pictures. We talked to them. We actually interviewed them, went to their houses, took months of work and a big team. We have a team of about 12.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you do. I suggest everyone go follow Greg at gregpalast.com. Coming up next on our show, an interview with Greg Palast, who is done some other awesome work. We're talking about Chevron. We're talking about the case there. Stay tuned. You're watching ACT TV.